Quasi-Comitatus Act of 1878. Now, if that does violate it, then that means that everybody who gets a concealed carry permit, everybody who goes out and buys a firearm, who is in the service, is violating that act. So the mere owning of a weapon is not going to violate that act. The only thing we're recommending, or not the only thing, but one of the main things we're recommending is that they allow that ability to conceal carry, that ability to use that weapon, that tool as a self-defense option still on base. So I don't think that's going to really change, affect the Quasi-Comitatus Act. Another thing that a lot of people like to cite is PTSD. Oh, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, that magical evil sickness that creeps into every Marine's mind and turns them into killing machines at the behest of one sound. You throw a soda can in a trash can, boom, they go crazy and kill everybody. That's what everybody thinks, right? I don't know what everybody thinks. But a lot of people do believe that's a major concern when you're using firearms. The definition of PTSD is a mental health condition that's triggered by a terrifying event, either experiencing it or witnessing it. Symptoms may include flashbacks, nightmares, severe anxiety, as well as controllable thoughts and about the event. Notice that definition said nothing about war, it said nothing about combat, it said nothing about guns. It said a traumatic event triggered by a terrifying event. That could be anything. Some people are terrified of heights, they can get PTSD from that. Some people are, they're terrified of like spiders, they get PTSD from that. According to that, there are different levels of PTSD. You absolutely can get PTSD from combat, from the things that we experience. And in fact, thanks to service member, thanks to OEF, PTSD is way more popular now. People are starting to understand that it's a very serious condition. However, even though places like the VA know that PTSD is a very serious condition, they don't take anybody suffering from PTSD's guns away until they reach what they consider a level 100, a very rare occurrence. Once you reach level 100, then you are what is known as mentally incompetent, which means you are not able to hold guns. You're not, because you will most likely be a danger to yourself and to others. Again, this is a rare occurrence. This is from PTSD, not combat stress. Meaning anyone who's at this PTSD level, whether they got that from going to Afghanistan or whether they got that from being in a car accident, if they reach this very rare level, then they're considered mentally incompetent. Mental incompetency is what medical experts say should keep you from having PTSD. So we dealt with that one. Another one we deal with is a lot of people don't think there's a need. According to Adam Winston, in an article calling Army All Military Members Isn't the Answer to Troop Security, he states that there are MPs already dedicated to responding to active shooter scenarios like the one that you saw at the beginning of this class. Well, Nick, I actually ain't writing this down, right? Okay, Nick told us earlier about the Fort Hood incident where he said the active shooter name one more time.
That real fast. That was Major Nadal Malik Hassan.
Major Nadal Malik Hassan had a revolver and a semi-automatic pistol, and he killed, I want to say he wounded at least 40 individuals.
Wounded 32 and killed 13 members.
32 and 13 members with that. And he already went on this bill about how long it would take to actually reload that weapon and to engage it properly in order to get that many kills off. It took, according to the Chief of the Army, Army Chief of Staff, General Mark Miley, he says that police responded in 8 minutes. Now, to Chief of Staff, General Mark Miley, he says that's pretty good time. His guy was dead, and that was pretty quick, was his exact quote. Now, in comparison to, let's say, local police, when they're going out of town, somebody walks in the door, you don't immediately die, you call the police, they ain't gonna get there in 8 minutes most likely, unless you just happen to be right out there, and you get dispatched. So he's right, 8 minutes is a very good response time. Then he should be very proud of that. I'm sure that was well within their standard training. However, in that 8 minutes, 32 people got shot, and 12 people were killed with a revolver and semi-automatic weapon. So you're thinking that's unless he had an extended magazine, that's probably 15 rounds plus the 6 rounds that are in his revolver. So you throw that on, and us that it's 18 rounds. Maybe he had one in the chamber, so we'll say he had 19 bullets, right? Now, unless he's a sniper, he's not doing one shot, one kills. You're going to take a couple bullets to take somebody down. So he had in that 8 minutes, he had enough time to do multiple reloads to engage over 40 people, and then cause almost a fourth of the killed in action casualties. What's my point? My point is, the police officer are definitely going to help. MPs are definitely well trained to respond to the situation. But in those 8 minutes, your safety is on you. If you do not have a weapon to defend yourself, you're at extreme disadvantage. Now, people say, but wait, Kenny Jones, arming the Marines, it's going to cause way more problems. There's going to be guns, in fact. There's going to be guns in there. And then there's going to be more escalation to violence in any type of arguments. Well, according to theeconomist.com, they state the odds of dying in firearm violence, particularly from what they consider an assault rifle, I'm not going to get into that today, but say rifle. It says that there's a 1 in 514,147 chance of you dying from a firearm incident, from an assault rifle. The only reason I say assault rifle, because then they went on to firearm discharges, which were even worse. I gave you the firearm chances. That was the 1 in 514,147 chance of getting shot by a firearm, like a semi-automatic pistol. You have 1 in 104,000 chance to get shot by an actual rifle. What am I trying to say? It's very rare that you're going to be in an altercation where you're going to escalate to violence with a gun, unless that person's going to do it already. At least according to these statistics. Now, there's probably a lot more psychology involved in that. Unfortunately, we don't have time to get involved in that. But understanding that the data states that it's very rare for you to get shot with a weapon. Now, most people take that rarity and they say, well, if it's rare for you to get shot with a weapon, then why do you need a weapon to defend yourself? Well, I'm going to come at you with a little bit of a pathos appeal to this, and a little bit of a logos appeal. In the same way that there's a 1 in 500,000 chance for you to get shot with a rifle, there's a way less chance that you actually get a shot, actually burning up in a fire, according to economists.com. That being said, how many of y'all remember fire drills in school? Is it fair to say that you've been to maybe 1 or 2 fire drills a year during school, maybe? Is it fair to say that they taught you about stop, drop, and roll? Yes. Are you encouraged to know where fire extinguishers are?
Yes.
Do you think that you could probably find a fire extinguisher within maybe 1 minute of where your position is right here, in case of a fire? It's very important to not be burned up in a fire, but yet they're one of the most rare things that actually happen to you in life. Gunshots are, not saying, again, death by gunshot, even though it's very rare, it's still more common to being in a fire. So we take that same security mindset when it comes to fire, why not apply that to gun safety as well? Again, where are we all getting at with this? Do we want to arm every single person in this room carrying around 9mm U4s? Not necessarily, especially not without training. However, for those in the Marines in particular, who take the time out of their day to go and train themselves because they are that conscious of their own security, then why not allow them to go on base and maintain that same security posture? If you think about it, and I'm going to leave you with this before we do a wrap up. But if you think about it, the civilian who has a lack of actual military training can go out there, go through a CCW class. He can walk to a Walmart with that weapon. He can walk to his church with that weapon if the pastor allows him to. And he's perfectly fine, perfectly legal to. But yet, an armed serviceman who has that same training, when he comes on base, is legally required to take his weapon out, downgrade it, store his ammunition, his weapon in 2 separate locations, then keep that in his car if he leaves his car, and then put that back home, and then trust that any bit of response time will save him in case of any type of event comes upon him. Now, not taking anything away from MPs, like I said, they're very well trained, and they will absolutely, they're absolutely, I think, Jay, you're already MP, right?
I'm attached to their battalion. Yeah.
You're law enforcement battalion, sorry. But yeah, they're very well trained, and if they get there, you can bet your butt that they're probably going to protect you. But until that time, you got to survive. So, that is all I have for my part of the presentation. Does anybody else have anything else to add? Questions? All right, what's open for questions?
Well, gentlemen, I have one question. You talked about transition, 80 and 19, what?
1942.
It's about 8 years. How many of those shootings were caused by active duty members? Because I know you mentioned both. You mentioned civilians, like contractors, military shooters, and then you mentioned active duty military.
We're the only one that was actually the Chattanooga duty shooting. That was just military members on base. Like some of them were just a husband, like killing his wife, or just someone that was mentally unstable, like before the shooting that was shooting. And I understand that. What else would you want to answer to that?
Second question was for, I believe, I think we come up with does the rule for concealed carry differ depending on what base you're on? Like for example, like, is it, like you know what I'm saying, like, on the Marines, specifically on the Marines.
Sailors over here too.
Sorry. Okay, very good. But, like, does Cherry Point allow concealed carry? Does, like, the Mason, like the California one?
It's a base by base basis, you have to have that command, that base command general's, permission in order to conceal carry. So you may have permission to carry here, you don't have permission to carry.
Like, not even if you're certified, like, maybe like you have to get their permission to carry whoever on their base.
Yes.
I got a couple of questions for you. What would we really gain? What would we gain by carrying on base in addition to the services that FEMA already provides?
But I think we gained that, like James was saying, that 8 minutes that it took for the law enforcement guys to get there. Say you're walking by and you see this dude, and you're behind him, maybe behind him, in front of him to the side. You see this guy shooting at people, and you have your weapon. That 8 minutes turned into 3 seconds. Case 1, 2, 3, give or take a couple seconds. But that response time went down a lot.
And if I can piggyback on that, a lot of these, like I said, a lot of these shooters, let's talk predators in self-defense in general. They don't necessarily look for someone who's going to be there to challenge. So when you talk about areas where you know for a fact that your victims are legally required to be unarmed, that makes it a prime target for you to actually go and fire to. Now it's very easy to think that these individuals or these active shooters are just randomly selected and they snap and they just go off and start shooting. But we know the rules of the base anyway. If you're going to carry a firearm on the base, you're going to have some deliberate planning to that. So they're going to be doing target selection. So in addition to the force protection aspect, you've been able to provide self-defense for yourself until law enforcement agencies come to assist you. You're also thinking that you have to add in force protection because advertised in this case, you're allowed to carry weapons. I think, and again, I don't necessarily have data to back this up, other than my own experience with just martial arts in general and teaching people to always be situationally aware, to look like you're situationally aware. Know your surroundings. Don't walk slouch, look up, because you just look like a bigger threat. That's just nature. But I think that in the same regard, allowing the Marines to carry on base again, not forcing them to, knowing that there's a chance that a trained armed forces member has a weapon would probably help and make these people think twice about shooting up there.
When you think about the Fort Hood shooting, that was just one man, that wasn't a team or anything like that. Imagine if there were soldiers that were trained to properly carry weapons, there could have been 9 guys on them before you even got more than 2 or 3 shots on them. So if you arm the proper people with weapons, that's just out-arming those who are mentally unstable, they're just trying to cause harm.
Another
To caveat off of that, kind of this next step to that question, what do you think could be an effective way to implement closed carry on base? Like, would there be a goal for a certain number of concealed carry people in each unit, or spread throughout the base, or what?
So, to my understanding your question, what would be the number of individuals carrying that would satisfy us as far as the change?
Yeah, like what's the ideal placement of those people who can carry? You know, you want to place them around strategically around the camp, right?
Yeah. So I think what you're also talking about is what's known as guardian angels. You'll see them a lot during the big gatherings, like ceremonies. You'll see actual Marines walking around with flat Kevlar rifles and such. So there's talk about it, and I think in Derek's example, with the Armed Force, they're kind of doing that as well. Like they're having 1 or 2 people training with their version of law enforcement battalion to not just marksmanship, just knowing, like, knowing that they're still not forces of the law or the UCMJ. They're just there for